Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for a brand new FTB Lunch and Learn, where we guide you through life at ChampionX. And today we'll be providing you with a comprehensive glimpse into Rebecca Lucenti Schultz's daily routine. She is the R&D director at ChampionX, and today we'll look at the contributions she's made, the duties she has, her obligations she bears, and how she leads a team of 20 chemists and engineers towards innovating chemical solutions for the most challenging problems in the area of flow assurance, which is really big in the energy space. So very excited to have you on today, Rebecca. And you will learn how she climbed the ladder, the skill sets required to get to a position like hers today, and what a true day in the life looks like for her from sunup to sundown. And she's a mother of four. So I'm really interested in how she gets it all done. So thank you again for joining us today on this Lunch and Learn, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I'm so excited to share my experience with everybody and to be on the Day in the Life series.
Yeah. So what is it like for you in the very beginning, educational background? What motivated you to even get into the energy industry? And what influenced you into the position that you are now in today?
Yeah, so great question. So I'm classically trained as a chemist. So I got my bachelor's degree from the University of North Texas up in Denton. And then I went to Rice and I was working on my PhD there. And interesting story. I actually got pregnant with my first son right as I was defending my thesis in the middle. And I had to come with an interesting kind of why on the road, like, should I stay here and continue my graduate work? I just made it as a PhD candidate, or is it time for me to really just start my career? And after a lot of soul searching, I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go out into the real world and just start my career. So I did, but it was a pretty precarious situation because I was pregnant with my first son. I was looking for a job and a lot of stress, but I was working with a recruiting agency, and they said, hey, we have this fabulous opportunity for you. And, whenever they revealed the name of the company, I saw Champion Technologies, and I was like, what do they do? And I looked into it. I'm like, an oil field service company. That's interesting. And they need chemicals. And so I was like, actually at first really shocked. I'm like, really? Like, oil's like a chemical in itself. Like, what could chemicals possibly do to help oil? And so I was like, I was actually kind of surprised that was an opportunity for me because I was just open. I knew, my skill set was a chemist and I could really pretty much do anything. But I was really excited for that opportunity. And so actually Champion Technologies was my first interview, and I got a job offer a couple of days after my interview. And so I thought, this is meant to be. Another interesting fact real quick is that my dad is actually a geologist. And so when I got the opportunity to interview with Champion Technologies and saw what they did, I was like, hey, I've listened to oil and gas lingo my entire life being raised as a geologist kid. So it's pretty cool. I like that a lot.
I love that. Did your dad influence you in any way to get into engineering, knowing that he was a geologist in the energy space, or was that just something you were naturally interested in?
Great question. So honestly, all my life, I've been attracted towards science. I just have always been very, very curious. I love science. We had a pool growing up, and my dad would go out there and change and adjust the chemicals, and I was just always out there with him, and I thought I was the coolest thing in the world. And so I was just kind of born and bred and just always had that natural tendency towards science. We used to watch meteor showers together when I was a kid. He took me fossil hunting, and so it was just really fun. I have a brother and a sister, but they never gravitated that way. It was just me. So I think it's a combination of natural tendency and then just that nurturing environment with my dad being a scientist.
I love that. And I love how you were so passionate. I love the whole example of the pool, because that really is where you're very, like, you are engaged with the chemicals, and it really is a cool thing, and you get to see the colors change. So
Exactly.
I can see how you yeah, how you found that really engaging and interesting. So when you started at, then I guess it was called Champion Technologies, now ChampionX, what type of roles did you start out in? And how had those kind of influenced on your career journey to get to where you are today? Because we always hear that, you take your first position, but then you go on different, success is not linear. So you go on different paths. It'd be great to kind of hear if there was any pivotal moments in your career of one of those defining jobs that you had taken that set you up for the position you're in today.
Yeah. So when I interviewed with Champion Technologies, they said, look, we're looking for a molecule bender, somebody that can come into the lab, synthesize chemicals, and help us with our plants, manufacturing procedures, and things like that. And I was like, well, I've done that for a long time. I can do that. It sounds interesting. So I really was what you would call like a bench chemist in the lab. I did synthesis. I looked at plant manufacturing techniques. I looked at different raw materials inside of our current procedures. And I would say that I kind of really worked from the bottom up. So I really do have a good sense because I've lived starting from the very beginning as a chemist on the bench and then rising up through the product lines.
So tell me about chemist on the bench. So those who don't know and those who are maybe intrigued, like, ooh, chemical engineering, that sounds interesting. Working with
Mm-hmm.
chemicals sound interesting. What does that really look like? Like, and also when you were in school, was anything applied from your lessons in school and your learnings to the work that you were doing when you first started?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I started out, my job was a chemist. I was classically trained as a chemist. So I was literally going into the lab. I come in, start my day, put all my stuff down, put all my PPE on, go into the lab and literally run chemical reactions. And so it was various things, whether we were looking at, well, what is this raw material? If we replace it in this procedure, how is that going to affect the outcome? Or, hey, we need a new paraffin inhibitor that performs better in this situation. Can you think of ideas to think of molecules that we can make here in our plants with our materials that could meet those KPIs? So a little bit of innovation and a little bit of plant support. And I actually worked in all the different areas. So within right now I'm doing flow assurance, but at the very beginning it was kind of like they needed somebody to look at everything. So I got to learn about corrosion. I got to learn about phase separation, water clarifiers, EBs, asphaltene inhibitors, paraffin inhibitors, hydrate inhibitors. I really got to work with it all at the very beginning, which is really cool because I really got to learn, well, what are the structure performance relationships? If you have this chemical group on this molecule, how is that going to influence it to become a hydrate inhibitor rather than a corrosion inhibitor? Things like that. So it really gave me a really nice broad beginning. But literally I was in the lab most of my days, and then I would write reports. And when I went back to my desk, I would think up ideas for new things to try. So, and it was very similar to what I did in school.
So somebody who might be in that position today, they're in a lab or maybe that's kind of like your first step. How do you get out of that, day-to-day just lab work into other roles? Because your career getting to R&D director obviously didn't jump from lab to now director, right? So there's like a progression
Absolutely.
there. So what would somebody do in order to make that trajectory? And then second is what kind of skill sets or like personality traits do you feel that you need to be successful in that type of role?
Yeah, great question. So I would say going back to my childhood too, I always had the personality where I always wanted to kind of lead. And so when we did group work in school, I was always the one to be like, okay, guys, let's do this. And you do this and you do this. Hey, what do you think? And so I always had that natural tendency to kind of lead in situations. So I always knew too, I knew that I wanted to be in science and I knew that someday I wanted to lead in some way. And so I would say, though, at the very beginning, even if you know you want to become a leader, it's very important to have a humble beginning. You really have to focus on coming in and making your mark as far as your technical contributions, because ultimately that's going to be part of your, proof that, hey, you have the technical ability to perform in any kind of a higher level job. So I would say kind of keep your goals, keep your long-term goals in your head, but focus on the short-term goals of really fulfilling your goals, really working toward making meaningful technical contributions. So for example, when I first started, I worked on various projects and, I remember my first product that I commercialized was super exciting. I was like, wow, I commercialized a product and that's going to go in the field, and just really being excited about seeing that through, which is another thing that's really great about the energy industry is that it works really, really quickly. So once you invent a molecule and you commercialize it and you go through all the performance testing, it's pretty quick to see it in the field. And that's, versus something like the drug industry where it takes many, many years for something that you work on to actually go into trials and then, make it into the market. So that's a really cool thing about what I do. But yeah, so I would say make your technical contributions and then you'll get noticed, right? And people will start being like, oh, wow, that person really has their stuff together. I like their ideas. And then it was just, then it would go toward, okay, running large projects. So having the opportunity to run cross-functional projects with, larger groups. So then people can see, okay, well, how does this person manage, across different people? How do they perform as a people leader, even if it's not like, oh, somebody directly reports to you? How do they perform trying to get the group to work toward a goal rather than just being an individual contributor? So get more and more of those kinds of experiences to get yourself noticed, and then just be open to the opportunities. And by that time, they should come. And so that's what happened with me is I had my first opportunity as a group leader in 2017. So by that time, I'd already been an individual contributor for about 9 years. And so, and then the manager of my team went on to do a different job. And so I was already in a succession plan. So that's another important thing, is make your long-term goals known to your manager so that you are considered in those succession plannings and things like that. So that was where I got my start as a manager. That was a very exciting time.
Yeah, that's such great advice. It's so true to have those plans and to, voice what you want and what you want to do. What have you found the most challenging part of your role?
Yeah, that's a great question, because my role now as a director is very different than where I started out. So I think it's a big question, but one of the big challenges is you want to make sure that you are still contributing technically. And I guess the higher you go, the less you feel like the more layers there are between yourself and the people actually doing the work. And so it's really, really important to stay connected. And so that's one of the challenges, is easy kind of to get caught up with the day-to-day, which is very different as a director, and trying to work with the other directors and trying to work with the VP of RD&E to get these larger initiatives going and to really get processes in place. So really staying connected with the team and really aware of the things that they're doing, because at the end of the day, you're in this position because you were able to make the technical contributions, and then also you have the soft skills to be a leader. So it's really balancing the soft skills, which are really, really important, that emotional intelligence, with the technical contributions and the continued technical steer, even as you rise up in your career.
Oh, that's such great advice. And it really takes me into one of the burning questions we always have, especially as a mom of four. And you even mentioned very early on, you finished school while you were pregnant. So, I mean, you've had challenges all throughout your career of, how do I manage my time and how do I manage my children, as well as my career and my aspirations. Could you walk us through a typical day? I have a 3-year-old right now. I have another one on the way in August. So I'm like, I don't even, with one, it's hard enough. I can't even imagine with 4. And I know you mentioned that because you lead a team, they're all in the office. So although ChampionX does provide a lot of flexibility and being able to work from home, it's still difficult whenever you do need to be there to be with your team. So walk us through kind of that routine from the morning to the evening, and really, how do you get it all done?
Yeah. Actually, I have 5 kids, so it's okay.
5.
I know I got a lot. So more to the point, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so for me, I went from 1 to 3 because I had twins the second time around. And so they were all basically under 2, which was extremely difficult. So it was kind of just boot camp. It was survival at the very beginning. And so those techniques and those skills I learned at the beginning, I just kind of translated over time as far as trying to balance it all. But I'd say, I wake up pretty early. I really don't get that much sleep, which I'm sure, and any mom is kind of in a similar situation. I used to be one of those people in college that thought I needed 8 hours of sleep every night to function. But then I found out really quickly once I had a kid that, hey, I can actually function on 4 hours of sleep. It's not pleasant, but it works. And so I wake up really early. I wake up around 4:30 in the morning, start getting myself ready, start getting stuff ready for the day. And then my husband and I actually switch off between getting our littlest ones ready. So that works out really well. And then whoever doesn't get the little one ready is the one that's getting everything else ready, like in the kitchen, and lunch is prepared and snacks and all of that. And I'd say, I mentioned my husband, he's actually a very, very big part of my support system. We really work together. We split everything at home 50-50. So I really couldn't do what I do without him. So shout out to Rodney if you're going to watch this.
Love it.
But yeah. But then I take, after all of that, I take a couple of my kids to school, because it's really important for me as a mom to get to spend time with my kids too, especially when you have kind of a demanding career and you're in the office a lot. But I really enjoy taking my kids to school because that gives me a chance to kind of connect with them before the day starts. And then I head to the office because yeah, like you said, having a team, especially a large team of 20, and it already kind of feels like there's not enough to go around sometimes. It's very important for me to be present and be here, and in case there's any questions or anything comes up. So, but that being said, I do have the flexibility to, if I need to go out for something, or need to go to doctor's appointments, or I just actually two of my kids had a basketball camp this week, so I dropped them off in the morning and came here. So I definitely have the flexibility to do that, which is really, really good.
Mm. I love that. And that's so important in anybody's life, and like men or women, parents in general. There's so much of the division right now in our new generation. We both divide and conquer. So everybody's involved. It's not like 20 years ago wherever, a lot was put on the woman, even though it still is like that today. But I'm so glad to hear that so many families are like, husbands are taking roles and they really are dividing, especially the morning routine. It can be so difficult.
Exactly.
So tell us, once you get to work, how is it? Meetings all day? Are you back to back? What's that like? Do you ever get into a lab anymore, or is it mainly just directing your team?
Yeah, great question. So once I get here in the morning, I look at emails, and of course, as you can imagine, I'm sure a lot of you have the same thing. Inbox full of emails. Try to get through the really important things until the first meeting of the day starts. And so sometimes that's 7:30, sometimes it's 8, so first thing in the morning. And a lot of my day usually is meetings, pretty much back to back. So it is difficult to find time to actually do things, because there are things that we need to do. And so one of the things I do to try to help with that is I block off kind of predetermined, it's called focus time. Outlook does it for you. And so I leave that blocked off so that, it looks like I'm somewhere, I'm in a meeting, but I actually, that's time that I can use to actually do things. Because you know how it is, you go in the meeting and you get a big list of things, and then, it's difficult to do them. So yes, I'm in different meetings during the day, and that can range from customer meetings, where we're actually talking to customers about their applications in the field and new products that we're qualifying for them, new products that we're innovating for them. And then I also work a lot with the other directors just to make sure that we're aligned, and make sure that we are really managing R&D and the different projects that we have. Make sure people are balancing their time between customer support and innovation and different improvements. So between all of that, I really do find the time to still go in the lab once in a while. I do something called a Gemba walk, which Gemba just means at the place where work is done. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just go into the lab and I'll be like, hey, what are you doing? Walk me through this procedure, and why do you do it this way and not this way? Or explain to me what this means. And so really try to understand. And then I also block off time with each of my team members. So all my indirect reports, even I do have a check-in with them, the regular one. And so that way I know that if we don't get the chance to talk, even though I have open door policy and they can come in whenever I'm in here, that it's a time on the calendar where I make sure that I can focus on just them and whatever they want to discuss with me. So that's really helpful too, to stay connected when the day is so busy.
That's so important. And I like that you have an open door policy. I think that is something that, we really even saw in Soma as the CEO of ChampionX, giving that outlet for employees to even email him directly. It just really shows that the culture of ChampionX really does provide that type of leadership, and also the opportunity for anybody to have a voice. I do want to jump in and ask you a question around, you are an inventor, and you have granted and or pending patents. What is the process like for that? And how do you, being in the role that you're in today, I'm sure many R&D directors or anybody in that technology space, that is their main goal, is to make sure you can patent and basically protect, your technology. What's the process like? And is it like you're going into a lab and you're trying things out, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've got a magic potion, and then you go and you apply for a patent? And I'd love to understand kind of how that works.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit like that, but it also involves a lot of background work. So one really important thing is you got to know what else has been done. So you have to have a really good handle on what everybody else out in the industry has done by reading papers, by reading patents. So you have a really firm understanding of what does the landscape look like. And then that gives you ideas for different tweaks that you can do to the molecules to increase performance even more for whatever the function you're looking at. So that's really how it works. And then, when you get ideas, we have what's called prospecting time here at ChampionX, where we really encourage people outside of the customer support projects and outside of the larger innovation projects. Hey, you have an idea, go in the lab and try to do it, try to make it work. And so then, you can just go into the lab and be like, okay, here, I have this product, I'm going to make this change, I want to see how it influences the performance. And yeah, and then whenever you are able to build the body work to show, yeah, this is better, this is different, or this does more things than the old solution, then you raise it up and evaluate it with the legal team and be like, yeah, this is something that we definitely want to protect. Or sometimes it's not a patent, sometimes it's like a trade secret where you just keep that knowledge quiet, so that other people don't know about it. But yeah, it's exciting, and there is a lot of trial and error, and feel like a mad scientist sometimes, and you go in the lab and you're like, oh yeah, this is working.
I love that. That just sounds so exhilarating and like very fulfilling to like get to that point where you can patent something. I'd like to, before we close, I do want another question around just what do you like the most about your role? And for those that aspire to get into that position, what kind of background do they need? Do they have to be a chemical engineer, or could they have a different degree? Love to know your perspective on that.
Yeah. So for R&D here at ChampionX, really, it's any chemistry or engineering background is really what we're looking for to lead the groups. But what I like most about the role, and it is something, the transition from individual contributor to a leader is kind of a big deal when you're in the sciences, because as scientists, we really thrive on the things that we do and the things that the different impacts we make as individuals. So that was one thing that I was grappling with, and a lot of people grapple with, is, do I want to make that jump? And instead of focusing on my work and focus on your work, your team's work as a whole, and things like that. It's really different. And so one thing I do really like about my job is, and what I didn't really realize once I got into the manager role how it would be, is you really do have a bird's eye view. So instead of just having a one small viewpoint into the things that you're doing, and the many different layers of the onion whenever you're an individual contributor, in this role I get to see all the work my team is doing and how everything fits together. And so that's one of my favorite parts, actually, is at the beginning of the year, giving everybody goals and making sure that they all fit together, and that we're working with other people even outside of the team to really advance the things that we need to do in line with the business. So I love that bird's eye view, and I love being able to listen to somebody on my team, like, hey, I'm having this problem, I've tried this, I've tried that, and I don't really know what to do next, and being able to be like, hey, well, have you tried this? Why don't you try doing it this way? And just being able to continuously provide that technical steer really does help me. It keeps me grounded with kind of how I was raised in my chemical background, with also the management aspect, and just making sure everything is fitting together and running like a well-oiled machine.
Rebecca, I think what you're doing today is absolutely amazing, and it's so inspiring. And sorry, I thought you only had 4 kids, but now knowing you have 5, I'm even more mind blown. So it is just really amazing to see where you have started and where you've gotten to today, and managing the team of 20 and all of the patents that you had even described that you were able to do and create. It really is neat. And I think this is a job and an opportunity for a lot of people in the energy space that they might not even know is an option. So to close, would love to know, what do you love most about working at ChampionX? And how do you see your job evolving in the future?
Yeah. So I've been here for a while. I've actually been here, I'm almost at 16 years. So I really do love working here. And even though my company has gone through a lot of different iterations, what really has stayed true is the culture and the people. And that really is what keeps me coming to work every day, is knowing that I'm going to go to a place where I love the people I work with, and I feel like I'm valued as a person. And so I really do feel like that. I feel like the company listens to its individuals. Even we have, I think someone's mentioned it, we have a pipeline at the CEO where anybody can voice any concerns or questions directly up to him. And so it really is open. And ChampionX really does reward their employees. They really recognize your contributions, and really helps you develop your career. So I've loved working here, and I can't really see myself going anywhere else, actually.
I love it, Rebecca. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And thank you for sharing your journey, your job, your insights, what your life is like, how you juggle it all. Very inspiring. And I'm just so happy that you were able to provide that detail to our listeners today. So thank you again, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Really a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you. And if you like this Lunch and Learn, please follow us on YouTube, Flipping the Barrel. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Flipping the Barrel as well. And you can check us out on the website, www.flippingthebarrel.com. And we appreciate your time today, and we hope you learned something. Thank you for joining us.